Shalom, my brothers and sisters. Shalom and welcome. My name is Symmanayah, and this is End Time Words. End Time Words to Yashar'al, an awakening nation of believers, both Hebrew and Goyim, Gentiles, other nations, made one by the sacrifice and ascension of Yahushua, our Mashiach, our Messiah, Yahushua. This message is to you, my brothers, my sisters. And as always, I try to always pursue a life that is reflective of an obedient servant to the Most High. A life that is desirous to worship and obey the Most High. A life that understands the real living guidance of the Spirit of Yahushua, the set-apart Spirit, or as many know him as the Ruach HaKodesh, which means set-apart Spirit. But let us place a name. Let us identify the continuity in the Most High's plan for our restoration, our relationship with him. And we are told that the Father will send the Spirit of truth in the name of Yahushua. All too often, many of us ignore that verse. Many of us glaze past it. But it is through Yahushua that we find fellowship, restored fellowship with the Most High Father. It is through the Spirit of Yahushua, it is through the Word made flesh that we are able to come to the point where we are in our walk, in our journey. With that said, this subject today, at this time, my brothers, my sisters, is things versus family. Things versus family. Scriptures tell us that our family are those who seek to do the will of the Almighty Yahuah. What is it that surrounds us each day? Could our residence, the contents in our dwelling places, our vehicles, money, jewelry, gold, silver, other precious metals, maybe investments, or maybe there's something else, are all or some of these things provided for the purpose of utility and comfort? Do we receive comfort in having such things? Are we aware of the grip that things have on us? What are we willing to step away from and leave? What are we willing to come away from sincerely and not turn back? Do the things we have they come to a point that we've grown accustomed to seeing and having them in our possession? Do they have weight on whether or not we can transition from one place to another? Do they influence our decision? What about the so-called blood relatives that we are taught to put such strong emphasis on? Do they really mean us well? Are our so-called blood relatives, are all of them true worshipers of the Most High Yahuah? Do all of them seek to worship and obey the Father? Would our blood relatives prohibit us from obeying the guidance from the Most High? Will any and all obstacles be removed in order to bring us to the fulfillment of Scripture? Whether we ask ourselves these questions or not, their very presence is on us. Pray and watch. All answers will be made manifest. Things versus family. Choose wisely, my brother. Let us begin to represent the trueness of a righteous family. Let us begin to be reflective of all that the scriptures describe in us as family. With that said, let's get into some scripture. First, I want to get into Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 2 through 11. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 2 through 11. Futility, futility, says Koheleth. Some might say preacher. Futility, futility, all is futile. What does man gain from all his labor in which he toils under the sun? A generation passes away, and a generation comes. But the earth stands forever. The sun also rises, and the sun sets, and hurries back to the place where it arose, going to the south and turning to the north, turning, and on its round the wind returns. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea never overflows. To the place from which the rivers come, there they return again. All matters are wearisome. No one is able to speak of it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what shall be. What has been done is what shall be done, and there is no new matter under the sun. Is there a matter of which it is said, see, this is new? It was here already, long ago. There is no remembrance of former ones, nor is there any remembrance of those that are to come by those who come later on. That was Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 2 through 11. Let me continue on in Ecclesiastes, but now I want to go to Ecclesiastes 3rd chapter, verses 1 through 11. For every matter there's an appointed time, even a time for every pursuit under the heavens, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to uproot, a time to slay and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to loose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for battle and a time for peace. What does the worker gain from his toil? I have seen the task Elohim has given to the sons of men to be humbled by it. He has made it all pretty in its time. Even the ages he has put in their hearts, except that no one finds out the work that Elohim does from beginning to end. That was Ecclesiastes 3rd chapter, verses 1 through 11. Now let me press forward with some additional scripture. Matthews 12:50. For whoever does the desire of my Father who is in the heavens is my brother, my sister, and mother. That was Matthews 12:50. Mark 3:35. For whoever does the desire of Elohim is my brother and my sister and my mother. Matthews 12:25. Back to Matthews. And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said to them, every reign divided against itself is laid waste, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And he knowing their thoughts, Luke 11:17. And he knowing their thoughts said to them, every reign divided against itself is laid waste, and the house divided against itself shall fall. This was Matthew 12:25 and Luke 11:17. Now let me ask the question. Will Yashar'al be gathered? Will a nation of believers emerge before our eyes in our lifetime? Who is Yashar'al? Is it safe to say that Yashar'al are all believers? Let us explore some scriptures and let us see if we can come to understanding the answer to that question. Who is Yashar'al? I present to you Isaiah 11:12. And he shall raise up a banner for the nations and gather the outcasts of Yashar'al and assemble the dispersed of Yehudah from the four corners of the earth. Has this occurred? Will it occur again? Will Yashar'al be gathered? Who is Yashar'al? Let me go on to read Isaiah 54:7. For a little while I have forsaken you, but with great compassion I shall gather you. Jeremiah 23:3. Therefore I shall gather the remnant of my flock out of all the lands where I have driven them, and I shall bring them back to their fold, and they shall bear and increase. Jeremiah 29:14. And I shall be found by you, declares Yahuah. I shall turn back your captivity, and shall gather you from all the Gentiles, and from all the places where I have driven you, declares Yahuah. And I shall bring you back to the place from which I have exiled you. Jeremiah 31:8. See, I am bringing them from the land of the north, and shall gather them from the ends of the earth. Among them the blind and the lame, those with child and those in labor, together a great assembly returning here. That was Jeremiah 31:8. Ezekiel 11:17. Ezekiel 11:17. Therefore say, thus said the Master Yahuah, and I shall gather you from the peoples, I shall assemble you from the lands where you have been scattered, and I shall give you the land of Yashar'al. Ezekiel 20:34. And I shall bring you out from the peoples and gather you out from the lands where you are scattered, with a mighty hand and with an outstretched arm and with wrath poured out. That was Ezekiel 20:34. Ezekiel 34:13. And I shall bring them And I shall bring them out from the peoples and gather them from the lands and shall bring them to their own land. And I shall feed them on the mountains of Yashar'al, in the valleys, and in all the dwelling of the land. Have these scriptures been fulfilled concerning the gathering of Yashar'al? Can we expect to see a gathering of Yashar'al? Be not deceived when you read the passage of scripture that I read, where it says, Jeremiah 29, when he said, I should gather you from all the Gentiles. Keep in mind, the Gentiles are other nations. Other nations. And those who are under the nation of Yashar'al, the nation that's made one, anything outside of that represents the behavior and actions of other nations. This does not mean that there will not be those who are made one by Yahushua that will not participate. So do not be deceived in someone saying, well, that's what it says. So pray on that, my brothers and sisters. Pray on that. And I ask the question again, have these scriptures been fulfilled concerning the gathering of Yashar'al? Remember who the Mashiach, the Messiah, identified as family, those who seek to do the will of Almighty Father. Again, let me ask and respond to the question, who is Yashar'al? Let us read some more scriptures. Romans 12:4 states, for we have many members in one body, but all members do not have the same function. 12:5, Romans 12:5 goes on to say, so we, the many, are one body in Mashiach, Messiah, and members each one of one another. 1 Corinthians 12:12. For as the body is one and has many members, but all the members of that body, being many, are one body, so also is the Mashiach, the Messiah. Colossians 3:9. Do not lie to each other, since you have put off the old man with his practices. Continuing on to Colossians 3:17. I'm going to go, that was 3:9, and I'm going to continue on to 3:17 in Colossians. And have put on the new one, who is renewed in knowledge according to the likeness of him who created him, where there is not Greek and Yehudite, circumcised and uncircumcised, foreigner, Scythian, slave, free, but Messiah is all and in all. And keep in mind, scriptures are talking to the believer. So when he's saying Messiah is all in all, he is in all believers. Continuing on with Colossians 3:12. Therefore, as chosen ones of Elohim, set apart and beloved, put on compassion, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness and patience, bearing with one another and forgiving each other. If anyone has a complaint against another, indeed, as Messiah forgave you, so also should you. But of all these, put on love, which is a bond of the perfection. And let the peace of Elohim rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be filled with thanks. Let the word of Messiah dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing with pleasure in your hearts to the Master in psalms and songs of praise and spiritual songs. In Colossians 3:17, and whatever you do in word and or deed, do all in the name of Master Yahushua, giving thanks to Elohim the Father through him. Ponder on these scriptures. If necessary, my brothers, rewind, re-listen, look up these scriptures, and pray on them. Seek understanding. With all that have been presented and examined, will there be a transitioning for a nation of believers? Will that nation of believers be under a banner of Yashar'al? Does it take a process complete with details, structure? Will there be order? Will we witness righteous leaders, elders, counselors, those that are called and are chosen to lead, and much more in the process of assembling a nation of believers? In this process of awakening a nation of believers? These questions will be answered and more. Prepare for a great awakening and a massive transitioning of those who will participate in the fulfillment of scriptures regarding Yashar'al's great gathering will occur. Will occur, my brothers and sisters. Things versus family. What will be the influence? What will have the effect? What takes precedence? What's most important when it comes to this walk? Choose wisely, my brothers. Choose wisely. For there are more things that have grabbed onto us and latched onto us. There are more habits and behaviors that we have grown accustomed to. There are so many things that we have fallen into in our daily routine. Business as usual in our daily routine will come to an halt. In the coming days, we will see transitioning. We will see humbling events increase before our eyes. We will face challenges that will humble us, but to the non-believer and blatant rebellious, they will have a different definition of what's emerging before our eyes. But to those who seek to worship and obey the Most High, these will be humbling events. These will be things that will occur, and yes, our eyes and ears will become sharper, keener. Discernment will rise amongst Yashar'al. Be encouraged, my brothers. Be encouraged and come away from compromising spirits. Know this, the Most High is not slack concerning his promises nor his plans. Let us find answers in our questions. Let us discover questions that we may not have asked. And let us seek the Most High for clarity, for direction, for His living instruction and guidance. Until next time, my brothers. Until next time, pray and watch. Study, pray some more, and seek a discerning position with understanding, for the time is at hand. Until next time, shalom. Shalom. Shalom, my brothers and sisters.